Yes, now we would like to talk about one of the examples, mandala art form. I heard there are Taizokai mandala, Kongokai mandala, and all this. But when we look at them, it's so complicated, so many deities. So we don't even know how to start. So if you can explain to us a little bit the importance of it, that would be wonderful.
Sure. On the, I guess very simply, the word mandala in Sanskrit communicates or means a circle, and meaning something that's very stable, something that has no beginning and no end. And I think that's a key part of the understanding, because our way of thinking is very linear. The way we use language, especially English, is very limited. It's very specific, which is good for business, which is why people around the world speak it. It's not so good for spiritual concepts. So when you're trying to communicate something that's very broad, something very expansive and that does not have limits, art is better for that. So the mandalas are trying to express through a collection of art. You mentioned there's so many deities depicted in the mandala. They're trying to depict all of the different aspects of all the skills we need, right? So the Taizokai would symbolize the world we're in now, and all the skills that we need to gain to overcome the various obstacles that we have in life so that we can achieve enlightenment. And the Kongokai would symbolize all of the attributes that you get as a result of enlightenment and the ways that you use those skills to teach sentient beings, and all of the different, how deep these ideas of compassion and wisdom are. So in one way, very simply, they're diagrams. All aspects of education have diagrams. So you learn something and then they'll draw a chart, and you take that same information and represent it visually, and people interact with it differently. They can learn from it differently. It uses another part of our mind. So the two mandalas are like this. They are complex, and I always want to tell people they're not complex just to be complex. Human beings are complex, and so the Buddhas compassionately have to respond to all of our complexities to give us different tools to work on ourselves. So it's not a one size fits all. It's a very specific, finely made tools to help us understand just how broad this thing called enlightenment is, how deeply compassionate the Buddhas are, that they provide all these different lessons. And then, we have this, beautiful graphic display of how they all interact with one another and, lead us in the same pathway.
Well, again, it sounds very esoteric. So if we can actually see the mandalas and maybe, in that way we can understand or visualize it better.
Sure. So I have here, yes, it moves backwards on the screen for me, so apologies. The Taizokai and Kongokai mandalas, these are the version with the siddham calligraphy. So instead of the statuary, it's the actual siddham alphabet showing each of the different Buddhas as letters. And this is a unique form, but it's used in Shingon. I think sometimes people get attached to human shapes, and sometimes that's an obstacle for people. So it can be represented also, all of the ideas in the mandala, and I think this is a good example of representing them as ideas, can be represented both as human form figures or as letters in the alphabet. So they can be an actual diagram. So you can use both ways. So you often find these two mandalas at every Shingon temple would have some version of these mandalas inside, because this is the kind of I don't want to say basic because it looks very complex, but this is the standard way of representing the different ideas of our world and then the world of enlightenment.
Interesting, but I would assume for average people, shapes are a little bit better, right? I think this is a very difficult to even begin to
It is
understand.
actually, I like this form because it reminds me, I think sometimes we forget that, yes, the Buddhas have compassion and they've said they were going to help us, but part of the way they're helping is teaching us so that we can help ourselves. And so when we see it represented through the mantra, through the actual letter, we remember we need to study, we need to actually do the practice as well. So I think the Buddhist teaching is, the Buddhas are reaching a hand, but we have to grab on also. So it's not just us sitting here waiting for to be saved in some way, right? We have to do work as well to reach out. So